I thought I had adjusted this so that you could actually not see me decapitated. But anyway, hi, I'm Leathur Rokk. Welcome to my channel. And I got a story time for you. But first, let me add the ring light so that I can look my best. Today was a real interesting day. I got up early and I went up the street on my way to go to this big park that I sometimes reference. And on my way there, I ran into a chick that had a hairstyle very similar to mine. She had pigtails and her hair was fuchsia. And she was like, we were kind of almost like twins, except that she was a chick that had a suntan. And she was looking for a place that had food and stuff. And I said, dude, hon, come with me. So she came with me. And I wish I could remember her name now because, you know, I didn't think to write it down or anything. And actually, I didn't find out until much later on. So, got to the park, and there was already a church that was set up, and was one had some clothes there, but they were real strict on how many things you could get, and they allowed only one of a category. But wait till you see what I got. Look at this dress. This would be, I'm guessing, a mini dress on me, and maybe like 2 inches longer, and you know, if I built it in, it'll be the length I like, I'm sure. Look at the detail on this. Look, it's paisley print. You know, I wear a lot of these colors, from a mint to a seafoam to turquoise, but this has paisley print. It also has fuchsia and purple and navy blue, and it even has gold and green and like a coral color. But there's so much of that fuchsia purple color that I have things. I think I even have a garter belt that matches the turquoisey kind of color. But and this is what the back of it looks like. You know, if nothing else good happened today except getting this dress, it was worth it. And the tag says America and Beyond. Kind of an interesting name for a designer, but isn't that dress pretty awesome? Well, okay, so I got that item of clothing, and I was very grateful for that. And of course, you know, I got some attitude along with it. So then you know, okay, you'll have to excuse me. So many things happened that I actually took notes today, because it really, a lot happened in about 4 hours or so that I was out. Today was, by the way, National Health Center Week, and it was a National Health Center Week festival. One of the sponsors is one of the urgent care clinics that has a variety of services, and they actually have good nurses and nurse practitioners and doctors there and stuff, but that's not really the purpose of this video. But that is the reason why I went to this thing, is because I had heard a rumor on the street that if you visited all the booths and you got this piece of paper or card or whatever stamped, then you automatically got gift cards for local businesses. And I don't know whether they were $10 cards or $20 cards or maybe even $50 cards, and it could have been for like Walgreens or CVS or one of the local national chains that has stores around here. And some of them, actually, those companies are owned by even bigger companies that also have stores in Washington, D.C. and in California. So you could get something and it wouldn't even expire, and you can use it in a store someplace else that you plan on traveling. So that was my initial draw for this. And I've been to these before, and the experience had been that you're waiting in long lines in the sun, and that is probably the biggest the drawback to this. And I was in the sun, and I was in the sun, and I was in the sun, and oh my God. And I noticed that there were these people that were cutting ahead in line, and I noticed there seems to be certain cultural differences about the protocol of people know how the proper way to wait in a line is. I do not see too many English-speaking people doing this, but I'm seeing people who wear the more scarves and the more robes and the more loose and modest your attire, the more there seems to be a propensity for doing things like taking you and your other wise, also headscarved sisters, and sometimes they're little kids, and just going a quarter of a block ahead of the line. I mean, and if you think I'm exaggerating, you have no way of realizing how long these lines were, and they were kind of slow moving. But I figured if you have a chance of getting some really valuable things, I will endure some discomfort if I know I'm going to get $10 or $20 or $50 or whatever. I mean, how much is a little discomfort worth? What else would you be doing with your time? And that's the thing is, I think of all the things that I could have been doing short of, being a caregiver stuff. It was certainly worth my while to hang around and hopefully get some things, you know, for the house or for my mom or myself or whatever. God forbid I get some things for myself. Even though, hey, I got a bitchin' dress out of the deal, so I'm happy about that. But I'm noticing all these headscarf people that are especially jumping in line, and I'm thinking I make a mental note of that. That there didn't seem to be anybody policing, catching people doing things that was out of control, and that's one thing that I wish would have been done. Another thing is once we got to the booths, and now there was nice people that gave us little cards that they said if you got everything stamped or scratched off or otherwise marked, if you got everything, then you were entered into a drawing to win an iPad. And I'm thinking, well, you know what, that would be obviously very useful. I can't imagine it would be the 1 terabyte one that I crave. It's about $3,000, but it might only be one that's where all the storage would have to be cloud storage, because I'm sorry, 32 or 64 gigabytes, that's nothing. When you're shooting video and stuff, you know how much, how big those files are. You need some real, anything less than 128 gigabytes is a joke, and that won't last long if you create content. And if you're putting out daily stuff like what I'm doing, come on. You want is big. That's why I like hard drives with the terabytes. I want as much room as possible. I know I'm preaching to the choir. Anyway, getting back to my story. The first booth I noticed was a voter registration booth, and they seemed to be pushing this on practically everybody that was here, even though it was obvious that not everybody here was citizens. And I even took one of the people aside. I said, in order to register to vote, you have to be an American citizen. And so much of the people that is your target audience here to getting these social services and getting these health screenings, this is mostly a fair for encouraging people to get health screenings, get their blood pressure checked, see dentists, and people help out their kids. And it was a very family-friendly event and stuff, But this whole thing, that right away, the first thing they were trying to get people to do is register to vote, and there was no vetting on make sure you're a citizen first. If I was stamping the vote, I would ask for voter ID or something to prove a citizenship before giving them letting them even near the voter registration things. I made a note of that. So this was a very obviously multicultural event. Okay. Now, on the plus side, the DJ was playing really great music. That was some of it was mix-ups, mash-ups, whatever, of some current things with some stuff from the 80s and even the 70s. A lot of it was actually just some straight-up soul from the 70s. So I was glad that they didn't just cater to trashy hip-hop with profanities, which I'm sure they wanted everything to be very family-friendly. They had a real beautiful blonde lady that was wearing a pale pink dress, like a princess dress. And I'm thinking, what a great and fun gig to have. But I couldn't take it because my shoulders would be exposed. Unless they let me put a shawl over my shoulders so that they wouldn't be in the sun. Because, I can't, that's the most dangerous part of my body to be exposed, is my upper shoulders, my back, that area. I can't get that in the sun at all. I try not to even have this. It's a shame because I love punching V-necks and stuff. But in the daytime, part of the reason why I wore this is because if I grease up myself with sunblock, that I'm running out of, and I can't run out of it for the face. That's really, really, really important. And they didn't have any of it there, by the way. So I noticed there was more families. All of a sudden, the line would be going. Then all of a sudden, the family members of that person that apparently was just a placeholder would be there. So you think you're a certain place in line, and all of a sudden there's this family ahead of you. So, and again, there were very little opportunities to get shade there. And I was really worried because I my umbrellas have been dying. Uh, Real serious deaths. The last one I was carrying was looking so bad. It was little more than a staff with a couple of jagged, raggedy edges hanging down. We finally threw that out. Well, a real cool accident, serendipity, whatever you want to call, happened. There's this one booth that had a big spinning wheel, like on Wheel of Fortune, and if you it gets this thing, answer a question, and they ask you a question. If you get it right, you get a choice of gifts that they had out. And so my question was, when you take out a cervix, a uterus out of a woman, what is that operation called? And I said hysterectomy. Duh. So I got that answer right. So you want to know what I got? An umbrella. Isn't that wonderful? The very thing, the one of the things that I've been needing, because I have to keep myself out of the sun and everything, is an umbrella, and I got one. Law of attraction. When you have something in your mind and you know it's something you want and you don't want to spend money on it needlessly, you know. And Felix, by the way, he got to answer a question, and he also picked an umbrella, so I've got a backup. Because when it gets windy, these things get tore up, and that's sometimes the only thing I have to protect myself. And so I get myself under an umbrella, and that's one of my secrets for survival with all these UV rays. Whoops. Now that was just the sound you heard. I have this heavy frame piece of artwork. Sometimes the wires that you can hang it with get caught up in this computer power cable, and that's really a bad thing, because one time that's what happened when my mom screamed when she saw the dead mouse, and I jumped and I knocked this artwork over, and that caught the cable with the computer, and the computer started to fall. So we really want to avoid things like that happening. Another thing I observed there, among the women that were wearing all the headscarves and things, there is a trend that they have been using the COVID face masks, and even designer or fake designer face masks, just to have another way to cover your face. So, it's not about COVID at this point. It's just about, what, you don't have a right to see me. I can be covered. All you could see is a slit of my eyes. And I was like, oh, whatever. I'm sorry. I'll never get used to that. Yeah. Oh, and then, okay, it was nice. You got 2 different tickets, and one you could get a hamburger. And it was nice they didn't make you wait for it, unlike last year where it seemed like it was over an hour. They hadn't even fired up the grill or something. I don't know what was going on last year. I actually gave up on that last year. But I got a hamburger, and I put mustard on it, and they had ketchup packets, and they gave me a pineapple soda, and I think I got a bag of either barbecue chips or maybe they're pretzels, but they're still in the bag. I'll save them for later. So, but I wish I could have gotten washed my hands. Oh, and I got a ticket for an ice cream, and they have this thing that used to be called chocolate eclairs, but they say they're crunchy, but mine wasn't. But it's basically chocolate, and it's almost all chocolate. And it looked like there was a little tiny bit of vanilla in it, but it was all you tasted was chocolate. And anyway, that was what I had. And I really liked the music, dance music and everything. And there were different booths. I talked to different people, different booths. Planned Parenthood was represented there. And now I want to set this up for you. I was wearing my MAGA hat, okay? And most people figure if you support Trump and you're a Republican, you're probably anti-abortion or and all that stuff. Well, I'm pro-choice, okay? And I have gotten lots of my health care in California through Planned Parenthood. So I support them. I believe in them. They took care of me. They made sure that I was safe and I was healthy. And all the things that we go to doctors for, they protected me. They were so smart. They even had counselors there that asked questions, the right questions, to find out, like if you're being mistreated by your fella, they find out about it, and they were a safe space for me to vent when I was carrying these deep, dark secrets and stuff. So anyway, I was talking to the people staffing and saying how much I loved your organization and how I always talk their praises, and I always try to explain to people who give misinformation about them, and how I appreciate all that they did for me when I was in very vulnerable points in my life, and I will always be appreciative of all the diagnostic services they have available. Pap smears and mammograms, and just free birth control, just so many things. So you may be getting some misinformation. Even some of my favorite news outlets have negative things to say about Planned Parenthood, but I love them, and I don't care. They gave me a notepad, but it would have been in that bag, and that bag's not here, so I can't show you. But oh yeah, here it is. And also something about consent, which it's a shame. It's a year 2025, and some people just don't have the memo about communicating and not assuming. And if you're not a chick, maybe be grateful, because it's really interesting and sometimes not necessarily safe being a chick. But I want you to see something. They had this booth thing where you could stand up to a big selfie thing, and you got your picture taken. Now, I actually got mine taken twice, because the first time my eyes were closed. But I will show you. See, it was a great picture, but my eyes were closed. And hey, at least it shows how I did my eye makeup, so that was cool. But I got it redone, and they said they don't normally do this. And of course, because of the damn hat, you couldn't see my face anyway. So it just goes to show that giant ring light really didn't do any good, because you still can't see my face. But you know what? It still documented the fact that I was there. And all in all, I really did have a good time. And that DJ, I'm sorry I didn't get his name. It was really, I'm sorry they didn't have a dance floor set up. I would have definitely taken some time out of the afternoon to go and dance some. But then again, maybe since there were so many families there, maybe they wouldn't have appreciated singles doing that. But you know what? That's the risk you take when you're having a family-friendly space that really encompasses people from all walks of life and all ages, and you shouldn't exclude people that you see a threat. Unless they really are doing threatening things, then of course you do something about it. But why don't they do something about the people getting in line? Oh yeah, and one of the things that I was looking forward to about this thing is at the very end, you got a choice of a red or a blue backpack. And I can always use backpacks as luggage to store things. And plus a red one, frankly, that might be something I might want to go take into Washington, D.C. so that I can take the wheeled luggage but have a backpack for running around town, right? So I finally get to filling out all the damn things for the card, right? Expecting to get my backpack, and a bunch of other people got one. Well, they look at me and said, the backpacks are for kids. And I'm thinking, I go through this whole thing exposing myself to the noonday sun, which is very, very treacherously dangerous for me, okay? And go through all that, and then I end up getting some little navy blue tote bag, which, okay, it's always nice to have bags to carry things around. And I got some pencils, and not pencils, pens and stuff. You never waste a chance to get pens and notepads and things that would really, really, really be useful, I don't regret going, but it was just a lot of observing human nature and how sometimes people can be real selfish, ignorant people. But other than that, I was glad that I went. I was glad that I found people on the way who were looking for food and clothing sources who at least got something. They were also giving out socks in the other park. Oh, and this place called the Red Door, which is another place a bunch of us went to eat. They had rice and they had chicken legs, and is there anything else? I forget, but the rice. The thing is, they never seemed to have salt, but the chicken had such good flavor that if you ate the chicken along with the rice, it was good. and I got a cup of coffee that didn't have cream in it. I like my coffee black, and I can sweeten it with sugar or sweet low or whatever. But I got a good cup of coffee there, and I'd gotten a cup of coffee in the park. But the last thing that was going on at the park is there was a bunch of clothes that looked like they were going to give away, but then they had two preachers and people that were in seats, and they were going to put them through over an hour and a half of preaching, and then I heard they're only going to do this, you tell them your size and they give you one thing. So it wasn't like you go and look through everything and see something catches your eye, you get it. It wasn't like that. So I said there's no reason for anybody to stick around. So me and my friends split. So anyway, that's what I did today. Oh yeah, and I got my blood pressure, and I still think that it's higher than it should be. They said it was 113 over 77. And I will even show you the proof. But to me, that still seems kind of high. You know, I remember when well, anyway, I thought it was a little high. And the thing is, with all the stress that I'm going under and all the hats that I'm forced to wear, you know, that would be understandable. But anyway, they said that the only thing they could suggest is I cut down on my salt intake. And, you know, oh my God. Don't let me get started on that, because I love my salt. Okay, that was my day. I hope you had a good day too. And now I'm going to enjoy a little bit of this medical cannabis. Well, it's medical grade, but it's from a dispensary that a friend of mine just gave me. So, yeah, I will talk to you guys tomorrow with another video. And I got some light on. Okay, see you tomorrow. Bye.